This is the CBC Evening News.
Good evening. I'm Lisa Broom with the CBC Evening News. In less than 15 hours, a contingency of Barbadians is expected to arrive in hurricane-ravaged Dominica to offer assistance. The team of 30 people includes the crew, the Barbados Fire Service, the Caribbean Disaster Relief Unit, and medical personnel. Lieutenant Coast Guard David Harewood says the recently held exercise Trade Winds was good practice for such a mission.
Remember, we now recently hosted the exercise Trade Wind in Barbados. That was the warm-up for something like this happening. And now, in fact, we are faced with it, so it is easy for us to transition into being prepared and ready to render the assistance as necessary.
In addition to generators, the team, which left on board the HMBS Leonard C. Banfield, will be transporting medical supplies, food items, and diapers. Lieutenant Harewood says Barbadians' response to a call for donations has been tremendous.
Actually, since 1400 hours or 2 o'clock, we've had persons coming in at this base, HMBS Pelican, and it has been constant up until this time. We've also had donations at St. Anne's Fort, and there too are having a lot of supplies coming in. So we are getting them here. Once they're here, we get them loaded onto the vessels, and then that determines the amount of trips that we probably have to make, but there will be a lot of stores coming in.
And CBC spoke with some of those who donated.
We saw the devastation on the TV, and we just wanted to come and help, actually, because we thought, you know, what if this were if it were Barbados, what would happen? Why is it important, Zara?
Because it helps other people in the country.
Yeah. It's about kindness and giving back when we can.
Just the sympathy for Dominica and the other islands that have been hit, and it's just a small contribution to try to help them. But I think it's very important. I understand everything up there is in a terrible state, so every little bit must help.
Barbadians still wishing to donate may do so up until 11 a.m. tomorrow, as another team is expected to leave for Dominica later in the day. And those fire officers who are heading off to Dominica to assist in the relief effort met this morning to discuss and finalize the plans. Kent Jerson was there and filed this report.
Hurricanes Irma and Maria have left a trail of destruction throughout the Caribbean. Some of the affected countries are now appealing for help, and among the local agencies answering the call is the Barbados Fire Service. The department issued a call early this morning for all personnel, including those on leave, to report to the Probin Street Station. It was here that Chief Fire Officer Errol Maynard held a meeting and explained the situation.
We had a request from some of our neighbors through the fire department to provide some things to come and assist in Dominica and in Tortola. The official request came through SEDIMA.
SEDIMA is the Barbados-based Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency. While the fire service will provide the personnel, SEDIMA will coordinate the deployment. There was an overwhelming response to the fire chief's call for volunteers. He says they will be sent in teams.
Each team will probably a search and rescue team, which will include medics and search and rescue technicians. So that's probably about a six-man team, and we will rotate them at the end of the deployment period.
Each tour of duty will last about 2 weeks, and Mr. Maynard told his officers to be prepared for what could be a very difficult assignment.
I've had the opportunity to be deployed to Haiti after the earthquake, and you see dead persons. You see persons with their limbs off, you see people suffering, people hungry, and all those things. As humanitarians, it generally touch you, and you can become very engaged, and therefore it might have an impact on you mentally.
That's why counseling will be provided for all the firemen going overseas before and after their tours. Arrangements have also been made through the Ministry of Health to ensure they are properly immunized for their mission of mercy. Kent Jerson, CBC News.
Ken, thanks. Well, 6 people are thought to be dead so far in Dominica, and that number could increase as disaster management officials work to assess the extent of the damage to the island. This from Executive Director of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, Ronald Jackson. He says they've been forced to communicate through amateur radio after phone lines went down around 3 this morning. Mr. Jackson says from all indications, Hurricane Maria, which slammed the island with winds up to about 155 miles per hour, caused significant damage to housing and infrastructure. Mr. Jackson says Marigot in the northeast was hit hard, and they're also worried about an area housing the Kalinago or Carib people, which is not very resilient.
There are quite a number of communities along the east as well as on the north, which are going to be affected by both the storm surge as well as flooding conditions, in particular Roseau, which reported overflowing of the Roseau River as early as prior to midnight last night. And with the rain and the ice sitting over the island of Dominica, that would have perhaps been made worse over the course of last night into this morning. So Roseau and the towns that are to the south of Roseau are likely to be impacted, as well as face challenges in terms of access via road.
As to Sedima's response, Mr. Jackson acknowledges it will be difficult given the extent of the damage and the topography of the island.
Sedima has activated the regional response mechanism. We have an aerial reconnaissance that is currently taking place. The regional security systems have flown a team, including a Sedima damage assessment person, to the affected country to get a better sense of what's happening there given the communications challenges, to take some aerial photography of the island so that we can better plan for the operations that are to take place. There is also a planned flight by one of our partner military institutions that are working with us at the moment, scheduled for later this afternoon, that is going to take our rapid assessment team and perhaps one search and rescue person so that we can have a communications kit so that we can have boots on the ground and to begin to feed back the specific details.
And while it is too early to quantify the damage caused by Hurricane Maria, Mr. Jackson estimates that it could cost hundreds of millions of dollars to restore the island. He says nearly all 70,000 people who live there have been affected. And in a Facebook post, the Prime Minister, Roosevelt Skerrit, says they have lost all that money can buy. The hurricane suddenly strengthened to a catastrophic Category 5 storm just before making landfall on Dominica. Earlier, Mr. Skerrit posted live updates as his roof was torn off, saying he was at the complete mercy of the storm.
I was in the house and I sent my wife and my 2 small children with the parents, and I decided to stay myself so that I could have had more of an opportunity to deal with the impending hurricane. So the center of the house roof caved in, and then in the master bedroom, luckily I was not in those areas at the time, and then eventually the roof just started crumbling, and all of the windows and the doors got destroyed. There were police officers with me, but eventually there was some who came from headquarters from Monbush base and brought reinforcement and got me out safely.
Hurricane Maria is moving roughly along the same track as Irma, the hurricane that devastated the region earlier this month. It has maximum sustained winds of 160 miles per hour and was downgraded to a Category 4 after hitting Dominica before picking up full strength once again. And let's check in now to get the current information regarding Hurricane Maria with weather presenter Selma Green. Selma?
Hi, Lisa. Thanks very much. And we go straight to Hurricane Maria. Tonight, the center of that system is at 16.8 degrees north, 64 degrees west, or just about 80 miles to the southeast of St. Croix. The system is moving towards the west-northwest still at about 10 miles per hour. Maximum sustained winds are 160 miles per hour. We expect some fluctuation in strength, but as that system continues on its path, it's going to continue to be either a Category 4 or Category 5 hurricane, but it's an extremely dangerous system. At the moment, the center of the system is moving out over the Caribbean Sea northeastwards, but it's going to be moving quite near to the Virgin Islands later on tonight and then on to Puerto Rico. So right now the Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico and Santo Domingo bracing for that system. Hurricane warnings are now in effect for Puerto Rico, St. Kitts, Nevis and Montserrat, the U.S. and British Virgin Islands, and they'll be looking out for hurricane force conditions across those areas. So strong storm surges, large and dangerous sea swells, very strong winds, heavy rainfall that could cause flooding and mudslides. So the system continues to be extremely powerful and extremely dangerous. We'll continue to track it a little later on in the weather news, as well as look at what's going to be happening in and around the region. Lisa?
Thanks, Alma. Well, at least 2 St. Philip residents lost the roofs of their homes yesterday during the passage of Hurricane Maria, one in Blades Hill, and this one here close by in Fortescue Hill. This is the home of Livingston Mason. The roof of the front portion of his home was ripped off. He was not at home when we visited and is reported to be staying with relatives. Member of Parliament for St. Philip North and Minister of Transport and Works Michael Lashley says help is on the way.
Journey up there into the night, we had to use tarpaulin actually to make sure that his other furniture, that they are not damaged. In fact, when we examined the house, in fact, toured it this morning with Dennis Kelman, Dennis Kelman, Minister of Housing and Lands, and I've been given the assurance that we will have repairs done. If not repairs, we have to look at a new house for him.
Minister Lashley was speaking to CBC News after chairing an interministerial group meeting on the situation at White Hill in St. Andrew. That meeting was attended by Housing Minister Dennis Kelman, officials of Town and Country Planning, the Soil Conservation Unit and other key departments. Minister Lashley says they have made significant progress on the situation and are working with several possible solutions.
We're looking at a way how to deal with the matters at White Hill. Now, White Hill not only touch and concern the integrity of the road infrastructure, but it's also touch and concern the relocation of houses down there. Now, I must say that I remember when he was Minister of Housing and Lands, they started phase 1 of the relocation of the houses to Farmers Terrace. Now, Minister Kelman has started the second phase. So, what we're basically dealing with is an approach. We had a very comprehensive meeting, and very shortly we'll be informing the public of the way forward in terms of how we're going to deal with the White Hill matters.
And of course, yesterday there were reports of flooding in several areas, most notably in the north of the island as a result of Hurricane Maria's passage. Strong gusts resulted in a coconut tree falling and damaging a house in St. Joseph.
It was around midday when a loud noise rang out in the Chimborazo district. When house owner Samuel Sobers went outdoors to inspect his surroundings, he realized there was a problem.
I went back inside and went to the kitchen, and I heard a loud bang, you know. So I thought it was the party armor tree came off, right? And when it came out, I saw I pushed through and I saw that. It caught in a tree. I didn't know it was so rotten. Right, truth. And then it just breaking fall this way, by how the wind was blowing.
Mr. Sobers says the tree fell on what was the gallery area of the house, but it didn't disrupt any of the utilities. Though none of the occupants was injured, the neighbors are concerned about the trees. Sharon Drake says hearing the tree fall was a bad experience.
I just tell my daughter earlier this morning when I get her here now that I prayed last night and I said, I pray so that nothing, he trees don't fall up on his house, none don't fall up on my house. Don't mind that he got all the trees out there, so.
Member of Parliament for St. Joseph, Dale Marshall, and his team were quick to bring some temporary assistance.
It was good fortune that it happened in broad daylight, because had this happened in the night, it would have been near impossible for the members of the community to turn out as they have. Within an hour, the whole tree was down and we were able to drag it away using a vehicle. I'm really pleased that the community was able to come out at this time.
Members of the community speedily assisted with securing the house against the wind and the rain with a tarpaulin. Mr. Sobers told CBC News he expects that the house will be safe to ride out the remainder of the hurricane season, with the trees acting as a natural wind barrier. Kimita Jones, CBC News.
Well, the lone educational institution that remained open yesterday is being heavily criticized by many of its students. They claim UWI failed to make their safety a priority. Kareem Smith visited the Cave Hill campus and filed this report.
Here at the University of the West Indies, scores of students braved the bad weather, and it was all in the name of education. Students say it's the norm for the university to remain open even in extremely bad weather. While trying to escape the pouring rain, many of them took time out to air their frustration.
I don't like it, but I understand it, because university is not like secondary school or primary school. You're preparing for the world of work, so if working people gotta go work, then I guess we gotta come here.
However, some students weren't nearly as understanding. Some say the school was not even prepared for classes.
We were told to come to school, and then we have certain buildings closed. The cafeteria is not open. Certain buildings are still closed at this point, and we are just waiting on lecturers and what's not. So ideally, I don't think it's the right decision to open school.
Sometimes we tend to ignore the cautions of a hurricane and what it might do to us. And in that regard, I think that maybe classes should not have been held today.
It's kind of messed up because you're seeing the rest of the country actually shut down, even being flooded out, and to say that we still have classes when electricity is not even running in some areas.
Meanwhile, communications officer at UWI Cave Hill Charleston Level announced after 9 a.m. that classes would be called off for the day due to a campus-wide power outage. He says due to many of the regional and international obligations of the university, they're often wary of cancelling classes unless it's absolutely necessary.
We have administrative collaborations with other institutions across the region, and all that has to be taken into consideration. Then there's the very real possibility that you may cancel classes for an entire day at an institution which goes through until 9 at night in terms of its teaching. And sometime in the afternoon, by the time the sun appears, you've lost a lot of teaching hours, which you are then unable to reschedule or have tremendous difficulty rescheduling in a fairly tight semester.
Mr. Lovell says the university places the safety of students at the core of their decision-making process and will continue to do so going forward. Kareem Smith, CBC News.
While many Barbadians sought shelter from the heavy rains as a result of Hurricane Maria, dry taps forced some Sion Hill St. James residents to catch that rainwater to use in their homes. Sharika Griffith tells us more.
Residents say the water went off unexpectedly on Sunday and has not come back on since then. Very few of them had water stored, and those who did have since run out.
We had no water since Sunday night, and yesterday it was kind of rough for we, and we just waiting for it to come back on. It's tight because we ain't got no water, and we the waiting all the time. We keep asking the water come back on, the water come back on, but we just want it to come back on because you got things in the house to do and you got your little children and stuff.
The residents of Sion Hill Terrace No. 1 say no water tankers have come by to offer any relief, and so they've had to find other sources of water, which include the rainwater the island has been receiving in abundance over the last few days.
We haven't seen any water tankers as yet, so I don't know if they probably knew that the area is short of water, but actually during the course of the day we were able to reach someone to help us.
So how has it impacted you since the water has been off?
Well, it impacted me rough in a kind of way because I had to catch the rainwater to help moms do what she got to do.
We hard on because you can't get nothing to
field we start to go depend on little rainwater. And we're seeing no vats now, nothing coming around or nothing. So
have you gotten any word from the water authority?
We ain't get not a word. We ain't heard nothing.
With schools closed for the second straight day, including nearby Gordon Greenwich Primary and St. Boniface Nursery, it's been even harder for those with children.
Well, it's hard because the children gonna go and get clean water, to give them food and stuff. So it's real tight. We would just let the water come back on.
Corporate communications specialist with the Barbados Water Authority, Joyanne Haig, says the problem stems from low water pressure at the Worley pumping station, which services Sion Hill and surrounding areas. According to Ms. Haig, the system would gradually build back up, and in the meantime, tankers would be dispatched to serve the affected areas. Meanwhile, on Sion Hill Main Road, residents there said their water was slowly returning, but they were also without electricity as a result of a fallen tree.
There was a down where next to my house, and it took electric company 24 hours to get to it. And that, to me, that is wrong, because this is a high tension where that can kill you if it hadn't electricity, and I think that's something that they should have gotten on sooner.
However, as CBC spoke to that resident who preferred to speak off camera, a team from the Barbados Light and Power arrived to address the issue. Sharika Griffith, CBC News.
Thanks, Sharika. We will take a break here, but when we come back, we'll tell you about a serious accident in St. Peter this morning.
Do you want audience numbers? Over 140,000 people are watching Morning Barbados and the evening news. 6 out of 10 top radio personalities are found right here at the CBC. CBC delivers the audience you need.
Love Game of Thrones? Win cool collectibles and other branded items with the compliments of MCTV. Like and share the MCTV Barbados page on Facebook and answer the question to win daily. Promotion runs September 18th to 22nd, 2017. You must be an MCTV subscriber in order to win. MCTV, the right choice.
4 people, including a 4-year-old boy, were injured in a 2-car smash-up on Highway 2A close to the Women's St. Peter, leaving that section of the road impassable this morning. The Suzuki van, driven by 73-year-old Eudora Cumberbatch of Black Bess, lay on its side after the collision. Cumberbatch suffered an abrasion to her right knee and complained for chest pains. The hired Toyota car was driven by 29-year-old Jamal Agard of Block 4A, Nursery Close, Eden Lodge, St. Michael. He suffered injuries to his right shoulder, right arm, right wrist, and two fingers on his left hand. 26-year-old passenger Sabrina Collins of 6 Men St. Peter suffered trauma to the head and pain in the ribs, neck, and back. 4-year-old Ceylon Smith, also of 6 Men's, complained of pain to the right shoulder. 2 fire tenders responded to the accident under the command of Acting Deputy Chief Fire Officer Errol Gaskin, along with 10 fire officers. Barbados stands hand in hand with the Inter-American Children's Institute on the protection of children's rights. Social Care Minister Steve Blackett made this absolutely clear as the country hosts the meeting of the Directing Council of that institute over the next 2 days. It is the first time the Directing Council has met in the English-speaking Caribbean, and Mr. Blackett says Barbados acknowledges the purpose of promoting development of activities that contribute to the integral protection of the rights of children and adolescents.
The improvement of the quality of life of Barbados and the children and families is also high on its agenda. Today we are gathered here because we believe that children are the future of all nations and that it is our responsibility to protect them through policies, programs, and practices which are designed to ensure that they are given opportunities for the best foundation possible.
Speaking at the Lloyd Erskine Sandiford Centre, Minister Blackett said Barbados has been paying particular attention to a variety of areas that protects the interests of all its children.
Participation of children and adolescents early childhood education, international abduction of children and adolescents, sexual violence and exploitation, juvenile and adolescent justice systems, and the rights of children and adolescents in disaster risk management. The government of Barbados recognizes that the future of the country is dependent on the quality of care and protection provided to children. As a result, successive governments have been dedicated to improving the status of children and protecting their rights. The best interest of children has been and continues to be the primary consideration in all of our actions.
Despite financial challenges and the increasing demand for its services, the Salvation Army is looking to expand. Chairman of the Advisory Board, Paul Bernstein, says in a few weeks, the Army will sign an agreement with the Maria Holder Trust to rebuild the Speightstown Division. He disclosed the plans during a welcome and installation service for new divisional leaders in the Barbados and St. Lucia Division, Majors Darrell and Joan Wilkinson, the first Barbadians to hold the post.
Kudos to our divisional commander, Darrell Wilkinson, for within the short period of time of his arrival, he has already communicated with the authorities at the Samuel Jackman Polytechnic to have the old or used furniture donated to us sent to the Polytechnic to be refurbished. This in turn can then be donated to fire victims and others in need. Added to this, they have agreed to send designated students to paint and spruce up our buildings. We would also be providing a chute for donors to place their used clothes and other items in Reed Street after hours.
Mr. Bernstein says the Army already feeds 140 people 5 days a week and provides another 40 meals to those who are shut in. As for future plans, he says they want a hostel built to house battered women and to develop property at Long Bay in St. Philip. But to do all this, Mr. Bernstein says the Army needs all the help it can get, especially with the Christmas appeal, from which it gets a significant portion of its funding.
It contributes to a large percentage of our income for the entire year to feed and to do all the programs that we want to do. So I'm appealing to the Barbadians and businesses to give generously to help us meet these needs.
The chairman of the Barbados Christian Council wants all denominations to unite to deal with what he has described as the deep and complex issues facing Barbados and the region. Canon Noel Burke, who is also a senior cleric in the Anglican Church, says the illegal drugs trade and the violent crime that comes along with it, as well as the economic challenges and chronic non-communicable diseases, must all be tackled. And he believes that all churches working as one body are well positioned to help.
As church, we exist in society, and these issues and the church do not go along parallel lines, but we are all engaged in this ministry to bring the spiritual dimension and health and healing to Barbados and these Caribbean lands. And so in the midst of all of these issues, the church must continue to be on the watch.
And just a reminder that schools resume across Barbados tomorrow. After this break, we'll bring you some news from across the region.
Love Game of Thrones? Win cool collectibles and other branded items with the compliments of MCTV. Like and share the MCTV Barbados page on Facebook and answer the question to win daily. Promotion runs September 18th to 22nd, 2017. You must be an MCTV subscriber in order to win. MCTV, the right choice.
Puerto Rico is expected to be hit by the monster hurricane Maria. Puerto Rico's governor told the island's 3.5 million residents to seek shelter. The U.S. National Hurricane Center says it is very concerned about a life-threatening storm surge in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands.
This is going to be a monster storm, and the government here is stressing just how catastrophic it has the potential of being. They say they're as ready as they're ever going to be. Over the last several days, the government here has tried to stress people to get out of flood zones, has opened up some shelters, about 500 across the island territory. We also understand there's some reported food rationing happen as well, including baby formula, batteries, things like that. Basic food that people will need, resources that they should expect to be without. Right now, it is expected to make landfall sometime Wednesday afternoon in the eastern hour, and officials here are as anxious as some of the residents we've spoken to. Last night, we saw some local businesses boarding up their shops. We spoke to other residents who say they're just barely getting over Hurricane Irma, which did not make a direct landfall here in Puerto Rico. Now this storm that's on its way here on Wednesday afternoon is expected to be even worse than that. Christy?
Nick, emotionally, are people prepared? Are they ready to just cope with another storm, another round of devastation?
I don't think so. You know, the answer in that the short answer to that is no. In my drive here to the hotel yesterday, one of the people I was talking to, local residents, was stressing to me, we just went through Hurricane Irma, and now less than 10 days later, we're having to deal with another storm that's even stronger. Emotionally, that's a lot for anyone to try to withstand. And here in Puerto Rico, people are still without power. There's still debris that's noticeable on the streets in some parts. The cleanup from Irma is still ongoing, and now they have to make preparations for an even bigger storm to come their way. Christy?
And then there's the issue about the economy. I mean, we know that Puerto Rico is already dealing with its own debt crisis. I mean, how long will it take to rebuild after another devastating storm?
Well, interestingly enough, that's something that the government here has not brought up, the economic issues, but it's something that our news crew has certainly talked about. It's an issue that the island has been dealing with for quite some time now. We know that the President of the United States, Donald Trump, has declared a disaster declaration here. Economically, I think it's too soon to tell just how expensive this storm is going to be. In the hours or so that we've been out here, you know, we're not yet anywhere near when this storm is going to hit, but the conditions are already starting to deteriorate here. We're seeing those wind gusts being sustained just off camera here at the beach. Those waves are starting to swell. Earlier this morning, the skies were relatively clear and blue, and the clouds have started to creep in and eat away at what's left of the blue sky here. So if that's any indication how bad it's going to be, and we're nowhere near the height of how bad it is probably going to be a very long time when it does make landfall for this island to recover.
Two-time Oscar-winning actor Robert De Niro, who co-owns a resort in Barbuda, has appealed to all countries and organizations to help rebuild the devastated Caribbean island and ensure that paradise is not lost.
We have a humanitarian crisis, an entire island destroyed. We must act together to help the most vulnerable, the ones affected by disasters and vulnerable to the effects of climate change. We must stand with the Barbudans, Barbuda and the Barbudans. The recovery process will be a long, hard road. Barbudans must be a part of it, their homes repaired stronger, rebuilt stronger, new homes stronger, the immediate needs, power, water, food, medical care, animals sheltered must be met. The kids need to go to school. There must be a hospital, an airport, a seaport, roads, fire services, communications. Every need you can think of must be restored to Barbuda.
Here's a tip now from Cooperators General Insurance.
This tip of the day is brought to you by Cooperators General Insurance Company Limited. Insurance the way you want it to be.
Copy your engine and